Hello Spurs fans, welcome back to the channel Speaking Spurs with me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. So today we've actually got quite a bit to talk about. So the video is going to be mainly focused on the Wolves game at home, 2:05 kickoff on Sunday. But after that's done with, I'm then going to move into the stuff that some of you may have already looked at, some of you may not have. So this is for those people that haven't. I'm going to talk about that club statement that came up, followed by what the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust have said, and just opinions on that really. So once the Wolves stuff is out the way, if you're somebody that has looked at all that other stuff, don't feel like you have to hang around, but it'd be great if you did, just to get, a different view on it. I also want to say it's been a very good week for me. Although it's not been great for Tottenham recently, I've actually had a very, very good week, and it's down to you guys at home. I had the video from the Leeds game, my post-match analysis. That is the first video that has really, really taken off. I have had some that have been good. Obviously, it's a new channel and I didn't expect it to grow very quickly. You have to be very patient with these channels. But the Arsenal game, I think, was close to 200 views. The Dinamo Zagreb game, the second leg where we unfortunately got knocked out, that one cleared the 300 mark or was very close. Now this one against Leeds, the build-up game, it only got like 47 views for the preview, and then the post-match analysis, it's actually cleared 500 views, which is mental, and it's still growing now. I think in the first 2 days it only had 260 views, and in the last couple of days it's just really blown up. And that's not just Spurs fans watching it. There's been quite a few Leeds fans as well. I've actually had some comments from Leeds fans. One of them was praising the fact that I didn't say their defence is terrible and kind of stuck up for them in a sense, because, they have been better this second half of the season defensively. They've had a lot of injuries at the back. Somebody's been out for over a year. Somebody's missed half the season. They had 2 new centre-backs. They've had a youngster at centre-back. A right-back has had to play centre-back. Like, they've had just as many problems as Liverpool at the back. But I do try and be as fair as I can on this channel. I don't want to be one of those Spurs fans that gets all, bitter about our performances. I try and stay objective as I can. And if the other team has outplayed us, they're going to get praise from me at the end of the day, because we're all footballing people first before we're fans. So when there is good football played, I'm going to comment on it. I play football myself, and when I see nice play, I appreciate it. And, I did say that we probably could have drawn or even won that game had we taken our chances. But if you take the game as a whole, we didn't deserve the points. So, that's where I stand with football. If we don't deserve to win, I'm not going to make excuses as to why we didn't. I'm not going to criticise the VAR too much, because even had we scored from that, we weren't playing great. But yeah, the channel is growing at a great rate. Subscribers are still the hardest thing to get. So if you are a regular viewer of the channel, please just hit the subscribe button. All it means is you're following the page, and it massively helps me. Like, this is something I want to see grow, and something I want to do in the future. Not just, my own channel. I want to collab with people. I would love to get guests on this show, and the only way I can do that is with your support. Without the subscribers, it doesn't matter how many views I've got. The commitment is what will draw people in, and that means you guys at home get better content. So if you want to see interviews or me collab with other people, I'm just going to need you to hit subscribe. I've got people that are subscribed to this channel to help me out that aren't even Tottenham fans. There's a guy on my football team, he's a die-hard Arsenal fan, but he recognises that, this is something I want to do and it will benefit me as his friend for the future. So he's subscribed. Family, obviously I forced them to subscribe. Otherwise they will be disowned. But, just hit subscribe if you enjoy the channel. And then it's easier to find. You just go on YouTube, hit your subscriptions, and it will come down in a drop-down menu. There I'll be. Pop, hit the channel, and then you're on and can view all the videos. But yeah, it's been a massive week. I'm really happy. And I just want to give a shout-out to Bill. I know you're going to be watching. He comments on pretty much every video. We have a good dialogue. And that is something I try to do. I get back to people. Even with this Leeds United fan, when he commented, I commented back. It's an open dialogue. I just don't want just support from one way. I also want to give feedback as well. It's a conversation, and I know Bill is enjoying the channel, and long may that continue. So Hello, Bill. There's your shout out for the day. I look forward to your comments on this one, and as usual, I'll get back to you. So let's jump into it. Now I've wasted 5 minutes already. So yeah, Wolves at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Sunday, 2:05 kickoff. There are going to be protests before the game. The main protests are today, Saturday, and then there's more protests tomorrow. So if you're someone that wants to join it, go join it. I personally, I'm not going to go. One, because I'm in Chelmsford and Essex, and travelling to London and back for a protest just, it's not worth it for me for what the protest's about. They're ENIC out protests, which I kind of don't agree with. The protests need to be held in a different way. Although this has been shocking with the Super League, I'm not an ENIC out guy because you don't know who's going to come in afterwards, and their motives are just going to be money. If you're going to buy the club for over £1 billion, it's going to be about money because you're going to want to see a return on the investment. There aren't going to be any die-hard Spurs fans out there that have just got £1 billion plus to throw into a club and not expect a return and just do it for the love. It's not going to happen. So for me, the protest shouldn't be about that. They should be about more fan involvement, which by the sounds of it, we're going to get anyway, which will be in the second half of the video. But yeah, let's talk about what Ryan Mason has said. He's done his press conference, but he's also done little bits throughout the week, some with Spurs themselves. So if we just talk about our team news, Ben Davies is the only one that hasn't trained with the team. We knew he was going to be out, but it sounds like he's not going to play for the rest of the season. He hasn't trained with the team at all yet, but he has been outside doing some individual training, but it's too early to say whether he'll be fit for the Euros. But if he's already outside doing some individual training, I think he's probably going to be back for the Euros. But certainly for us, he won't be match sharp even if he trains with the team. So I don't think it's worth then aggravating an injury just before the Euros, especially when we know that the only thing we've got left to play for this season is qualification for the Europa League, which we should have the ability to do with the players that we've got without Ben Davies. He said, Wolves are a good young team. They've got exciting players, but with young players, obviously there's an experience, and that probably explains their position in the league this season. They had 2 very good seasons leading up to this one. They've struggled a bit, and their injuries play a part in that, which we will talk about. But yeah, young players tend to bring in consistency because they're trying to gel as a team. They're trying to find their feet. They're more likely to make mistakes through that lack of experience. There was lots of questions on his future, which again really annoys me. And I actually think for our next 2 games after this, I'm probably not going to wait for his press conference before I do a video, because they're just asking about his future. So many times. And I don't know why they ask it every week. They actually say, we have to ask you, just in case anything's changed. It's not going to have changed. He's 29, he's inexperienced, he's not taken charge of a fully fledged adult team. He's head of player development, normally. He works with the younger squads. So to ask him whether he's in contention of the full job or not is stupid. It's a waste of a question. He's got his robotic answer that he gives every time. Alistair Gold actually tried to put it in a different way. He asked if he was offered it, would he take it, hypothetically? And even then, Ryan hypothetically still wouldn't answer it. I mean, it was quite funny. It was nice that Alistair tried, but it didn't work. But yeah, the majority of the press conference was actually quite boring. There was a question on whether he had to remotivate the players after knowing we couldn't hit Champions League after that defeat against Leeds. He said no. He was asked about fitness because a lot of us Spurs fans have seen us die off towards end of games. Now, Ryan said fitness has not been an issue, and sometimes it doesn't come down to the fitness. It just comes down to winning games, and that then builds the confidence, and then teams look fitter, and I think that's the gist of what he was getting at. But I mean, I disagree. I actually think there's a fitness issue, and we do tend to tail off at the end of the games and look knackered. Certainly last 20 minutes, anyway, of every game, we look shattered. And Leeds looked very, very fit against us. So I do think fitness is an issue. What else did he say? Jonathan Veal asked a good question. We had a good question that wasn't about the generic crap. He asked about Joe Rodon. He was sort of getting decent game time under Jose just before he got sacked and was looking our best defender. He was asking why he hasn't been playing. He hasn't even been getting in the squads. Sanchez has been taking up that slot on the bench. And the answer wasn't a great one, to be honest. He said that he's been unfortunate. You know, he said he's been training well, as has everybody else in the squad. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The only thing I can think of is that he's not been playing him because he's just gone with the more experienced players to try and get him through the end of the season. And for me, that can be the only reason, because he was looking our best defender in the games leading up to Jose being sacked. So I genuinely think he's just going for the more experienced players to push through this end of the season. And that's the only reason it can be. Because footballing wise, you know, he's looking a good player for us. And I think next season when somebody comes in, they'll see it. He should get more game time. Fingers crossed, we can only hope so. Now, the other thing that Ryan's asked for is unity from the fans. He spoke about what Daniel Levy and Enoch have done for the club in their 20 years in charge. And we can't deny they've done wonderful things in terms of the expectations are higher now. We expect Champions League football or Europa League football at a minimum. You know, we haven't finished outside the top 6 for quite a while now. The expectations from the fans have risen. The expectations in the club have risen. We expect Champions League football. We expect to be at least pushing to fight for the title, which we've done on 2 occasions. And obviously failed to do so for whatever reasons, crumbling under the pressure. But we can't forget, financially, we're in a much better position than we've ever been. We have the best training facilities in the world, the best stadium in the world. I mean, we got beer that comes from the bottom of the cup. You know, what more do you want, guys? And it's cheaper to drink in the stadium than it is outside the stadium. So they've done a lot for us. The club has been brought into new levels. Obviously, there are things they've massively missed out on in terms of player investment. And a lot of us will say there are times where they should have just gone for it and not worried about the finances, because success on the pitch then builds finances. You finish a little bit higher up in the league, you qualify for the Champions League, you get a lot more money than what you do when you're not in Europe. So that is the only thing I would say is the negative. Apart from obviously the Super League, that thing was ridiculous, but we'll talk about the club statement after. So if we look at the form of both teams at the moment, we know our form, but I'll say it anyway. We've lost 3, won 2 and drawn 1. It has not been good enough. Obviously, some of those results come under Jose Mourinho as well. Ryan Mason has got 2 home wins in the Premier League and an away loss. Wolves, they have won 3, drawn 1 and lost 2. And their last game out was against Brighton, who we know play good football. They just failed to score, which showed again because Wolves beat them 2-1. So that will give them a little bit of confidence coming to the game. But we need to remember, Wolves don't actually have anything to play for now. They can't qualify for Europe. They can't be relegated. So they're a pretty safe team to play. Although I thought that about Leeds, and look what happened. So, you know, the season's been very strange. Things aren't what you'd expect. It'll be a tough game for sure, 100%. If we look at their players, their team news, Bolly is back. Obviously, he was struggling to recover from COVID, but he is back and ready to play. Marcel is a maybe. Neto is out. Johnny is out. And obviously, Raul Jimenez with the fractured skull. I mean, Neto looks a very good player, so he will be a massive miss. And we all know about Raul Jimenez. I mean, if that guy had remained fit, he's somebody I would have been very, very happy to have at the club. Very happy. I think he's a fantastic talent. They definitely missed him, and with Neto injured as well, you know, it's not looking good for them in that sense, but good for us. Less quality to play against. Now, if we look at the table, we are sitting in 7th, 35 games played, a plus 20 goal difference, and 56 points. Now, we have a game in hand on Arsenal. They are 1 point behind us now. There was a 9-point gap? There was quite a big gap between us, and they've closed it down to 1 point, which just tells you how poor our form has actually been in the last couple of months. West Ham are 2 points ahead of us, and Liverpool are 4 points ahead of us. I don't think we're going to catch Liverpool. Even if we win the rest of our games of the season, I think they've hit a running form now, and they'll be hard to catch. West Ham are the team to catch. And I think, do we win the rest of our games this season? I think we will overtake them. I think they've got a draw in them or a loss somewhere. Now, what will Ryan go for player-wise? It's going to be a difficult one. I think since Doherty has left Wolves, they've actually struggled to replace him. I think they've not had much joy down that side, particularly defensively or in an attacking sense. So they are there to be got at. Is Gareth Bale the right man to do that? I'm not too sure in this game. I would actually like to see Steven Bergwijn come back into the squad just because he will cause problems. He will make the unselfish runs to drag players all over the pitch to leave space for Kane and Sonny. And we know that he gives good backup to Serge Aurier, and I feel like that's twice now where Bale has let his fullback down. Doherty against Arsenal, and then he left Aurier exposed against Leeds. And I feel like Aurier has played well recently. He's obviously had some assists. He's been getting forward. Defensively, he's been better. I mean, I'm not going to say great. There are definitely better out there, but he has been better. We haven't seen Doherty at all in a while, so I would assume we're going to go with Aurier again. I would like to see Lo Celso drop to the bench. I mean, even if he's going to bring Tongi back into the squad and play him in a deep role, I would be more than happy for Gareth Bale to play in a central position. He's not going to have to do as much running, so it could create a lot of freedom for him, and he can still get on that left foot of his. You can drag yourself across the whole pitch. So I feel like that might be a better position. But ultimately, if he's not going to play Bale in there, then I would expect to see either Lamela or Moura. Moura being the better option for me because he's played his best football in that central position as a number 10 this season. So that's really it for the Wolves game. We just need to win. We just need to win. I don't really want to play in this stupid Europa Conference League. Europa League is a must. Although there are positives, as I've said before, of not being in any European competition. As we saw with Chelsea, no European competition, they went on to win the league. Problem is for us, I don't think we've necessarily got the players to push on from that. I think we will lose a few if we have no European football. We're not going to have the funds to bring in top quality players, and certainly without European football, we're not going to attract them. And it might change the type of manager we end up getting in the European football because they're going to come into a squad knowing they really have to rebuild. They're going to lose top players and have to be clever about who they bring in. So it could end up where we're in a position where we actually need a young Harry Redknapp, if there's one out there. If not, bring in Harry Redknapp. I'm sure he'd come back. But if we talk about transfers quickly, somebody we've been heavily linked with this week is Joachim Andersen, who has been on loan at Fulham this season. I like the idea of this player. A very good centre-back. Against us, I thought his distribution was excellent. Like, on the ball, he was great. Long balls, short balls, his passing was very good. He was strong at the back. I know, obviously, Fulham have been relegated, which doesn't bode too well from a defensive perspective, but he's at a good age. He fits our profile. I think he's going to cost about 25 million, maybe. But for his age, that's not a bad price. He's got Premier League experience. And I think he'll only get better. So that is somebody I would like to see. With regards to other transfers, I'm not going to take many of them seriously because they just seem like little links and everybody's being thrown at us at the moment. Not really too much more to report on the manager front either, just because of the situation we're in and the uncertainty. So I'm definitely not going to talk about that. But now let's move into the second portion of the video, which is going to be about all the controversy going on at Spurs. So I'll just turn my notes over. So Tottenham have come out with their statement, essentially apologising for the European Super League and announce fan representation on board. Because of all this, there's been a massive disconnect between the club and the fans. Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust have called for executive board members to resign, and they want a new board formed with fan representation. And I mean, it's been difficult for us. We've had poor performances on the field. Obviously no fans because of the pandemic, which has created a massive struggle. Finances have been at an all-time low. The involvement with the European Super League, our struggles on the pitch, the sacking of Jose Mourinho just before a cup final looks like it was just to save a bit of money, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think they actually would have saved more money sacking him than what they would have got for winning the cup. And I'm sorry, but that is a shocking decision. If you were just doing it to save a bit of money, as fans, I think we would have rather had the trophy sitting in the cabinet and saved a bit of moolah. Then appointing a 29-year-old with no top flight experience whatsoever as a manager or coach. Put on sale the most expensive tickets in the league for the games the fans are going to be in, £60 a ticket. And what's quite funny is, obviously I said in the last video, Burnley have put, I think it was like 3,500 or something like that, tickets for free for that game. I think even Arsenal, they are £30 or £35 a ticket for that game. You know, and that's a club that had to pay off a huge stadium bill. And I think they're still in debt now, so if they can do it that cheap, we can. But what the club have done, which I think is hilarious, apparently you're going to get, if you're one of these people with a ticket, you are going to get free food before the game. Wow. And I mean, unless you can eat 30 quid's worth of food before a game, then it's not worth it. I'm sorry, but that just seems like a little consolation they've put out there because there's been such backlash from it. So if you're happy with that, good on you. But yeah, so we'll have a look at the statement the club actually sent out. And what annoyed me about this is Daniel Levy's name wasn't on it. And it didn't feel like a heartfelt apology. And I'll break it down. So I'll just read it out. So for those of you that haven't seen any of this will be great for you. For those of you that had, just skip through the video to sort of like my points. But right, we have seen football fans around the world come together to show their strength of feeling regarding the future of the game we all feel so passionately about, with strong views expressed on the proposed establishment of a new European Super League. It is important to underline that we entered the ESL with the expectation that the format, rules and structures would evolve through dialogue with key parties, namely the Premier League, FA, UEFA, FIFA, and crucially, fans. Then why weren't we told about it before? It should never have been conveyed with certainty when it was in fact a framework agreement for consultation going forward. Although it seemed pretty set in stone to me when you signed paperwork. We should have challenged and reconsidered the annual access system. Really? I thought you were quite happy with the fact there was no relegation and it keeps us in a competition that brings us money in every year. But anyway, we wholeheartedly regret that we involved the club and that the legal process itself meant we were unable to consult our fans early on. We apologise unreservedly. Well, if you weren't allowed to consult your fans at any point because of these contractual issues, why sign them in the first place? You would have known that before you signed it. And with a team like Spurs have, legally, financially, we are always tight-knit. So, selfish. We have all learnt lessons from recent events and have reviewed fan engagement as a priority. As a result, we shall be liaising with key stakeholders and establishing a club advisory panel comprised of elected representatives from the different constituencies of our fan base, inclusive and reflective of our fans' diversity. The chair of this panel will be appointed annually as a full non-executive of the club board. We believe this provides for authentic, genuine representation and will ensure fans are at the heart of club decision-making, something we greatly welcome. No, I don't think you greatly welcome it. It's just hit a point where fans are so peed off at the moment, you haven't really got a choice because they're calling for your heads. And this is your way of keeping yourselves in power at the club. The selection criteria, mandate and constitution will be developed by independent advisors in consultation with fan groups to ensure it is truly representative of our support base. Further details will be released in due course. Going forward, we shall constantly look to review and improve these new lines of consultation. We shall also fully support the government review into football governance. Again, trying to save face. We are disappointed that the board of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust has not yet met with the club. The THST, with whom we have worked and indeed promoted for 20 years, has called for the resignation of the executive board over the ESL. Individuals who have lived and breathed this club for the best part of 2 decades. We have offered on several occasions to meet board to board and discuss an open agenda, excluding a change of club ownership and the resignation of the board. Our door remains open on this basis. We are excited to be welcoming 10,000 fans back next week. Our stadium will hopefully soon reopen to full attendances and non-football events will return. Like many clubs, we shall need to recover from the loss of substantial revenues The still new stadium is the game changer in our progress. It will deliver the revenues for investment in the first team. Be assured we are absolutely clear that the heartbeat of the club is success on the pitch and our fans. It is important to now get behind Ryan and the team as we look to finish the season as strongly as possible and strive to retain a European spot. Now, I think they were wrong to call out the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. Like, these guys are all volunteers that have put in the work. They took offence to the fact that the board have said they've been, massive fans of the club for 2 decades. I think the Supporters Trust took it as an insult, almost as if the club they were saying that these Supporters Trust guys haven't been fans as long. That wasn't the case at all. I think they're just trying to reiterate that the people on the board have got the best interests of the club at heart. And don't get me wrong, I genuinely think they have. I think that they know deep down that it was wrong, but Daniel Levy, being clever financially, would have had in the back of his mind, I don't think it was all greed to make money. I think there was an element of, if this goes ahead and Tottenham aren't involved, there would have been worry about backlash from fans in that sense. Remember, fans, we're very fickle. Had this gone ahead, with the kickoff from everybody else as well, we're annoyed at the club for going into it. It's selfish, there's no real football, there's no consequences. It just seems all about money. Then on the flip side, if it had gone in head and we weren't involved, there's that element of, will the fans kick off because we've allowed these clubs to break away, become elite, and we're left behind, struggling financially? There'd have been lots of fans that were okay with that if we'd have stayed in the Premier League, competitive football every season. And in fact, it could have benefited us in the long run. Like, had the other clubs been expelled from the Premier League, you think about it, we're already close to being up there anyway. So then you would have literally seen the likes of Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester, Everton dominating the Premier League. They'd have become the new top 4. So it leaves opportunities in that sense. But there would have been a lot of fans saying, look, the most exciting football is the Super League. We're not part of that. So I think, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, Spurs were damned if they went in it, damned if they didn't. Saying, like, where's the ambition of this great club that we want to see? So there'd have been arguments either way from all sets of fans. As an owner of a club, you can never win. You are always public enemy number one. So there was then the response from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. There was plenty of criticism of the club over the 3 weeks leading up to this pretty poor apology. And I think that's the main thing. It was such a poor apology and the timing of it was just crap. Other clubs have apologised earlier, straight away. There's been resignations at clubs. None from ours. No proper apology from Daniel himself. He hasn't come out publicly. So it's just pretty poor. But, as they outlined, some of the stuff that the THST wanted is going to be granted. There is going to be fan involvement. And with regards to offering to meet the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, I think what they actually wanted, they didn't want to meet the Tottenham board. They wanted to go above them. They wanted to meet like Joe Lewis. But I think the problem with that is I don't think people realise Joe Lewis's lack of involvement. So Joe Lewis, when you break it down, technically owns us but doesn't. So Joe Lewis is the owner of a company that owns ENIC, that owns Tottenham. So that's the reason we don't see Joe Lewis about. He's not really involved in stuff. And that's what it is, essentially. He doesn't have a massive affinity with Tottenham in that sense. He's the owner of a company that owns ENIC, that owns Tottenham. So he's so far away, it's unbelievable. Which is why they were only offered to meet the board. Joe Lewis is not going to turn around and tell, these people that, yep, you've got to go. The fans are disgruntled. He's old now. It's not his life. He wants to enjoy himself. And money that comes in from Tottenham is just a bonus for him. So I think that wouldn't have helped whatsoever, even if they'd have met him. But I can understand why the Supporters Trust didn't want to meet with Daniel and that, because at the time they were angry and just wanted him to walk. So fair enough. And the fact that, Tottenham have known about this Super League for a long time, they would have understood the format and things, and they chose not to have a dialogue. But there you go. It all broke down. But then they replied with, THST has noted with interest the club's latest announcement. The timing came as a surprise as we were still engaged in independent mediation designed to bring about a meeting between the Trust and THFC. So that was to do with the calling out of the Super League and asking for the board to resign. Still engaged in independent mediation designed to bring about a meeting between the Trust and THFC, mediation that was activated by THST after the club's repeated refusal to specify terms for a meeting. At last, though, 3 weeks after the collapse of the ESL and over a fortnight after everyone else, the club has apologised unreservedly, although only after detailing its reservations. An apology is better late, however, than never. More important is the acceptance by the club's board of measures we have been calling for over some years, and which we put forward in our 6-point plan. The dogged stance of the Trust and the wider supporter base has forced the club to concede the principle that fans must be represented at board level and to adopt some of our specific suggestions. But announcing this without consultation on detail is not a promising start, and the measures set out in the club's statement do not give fan representatives any real power. It is vital the club advisory panel has the support of the fans, including the Trust, if it is to be a credible vehicle for fan representation. We are very willing to meet with the club to discuss the mechanics of genuine supporter representation at board level. Those discussions would be conducted alongside the conversations we are already having with the government officials and with the Premier League in order to deliver the changes needed. We have said we are willing to meet. We have made it clear to the club directly and the mediator that we are willing to meet. And we have made it clear what the basis for that meeting should be. We will take the results of any discussions back to our members. What cannot go unquestioned is the club's decision to publish a statement that misrepresents the position and attacks a volunteer fan organisation at a time when the club is facing sustained criticism over its relationship with the fan base and for its decision making. It is simply destructive. To do so while we're pursuing a mediation process via the Football Supporters Association in good faith is regrettable in the extreme. We also note the decision of the club's board as individuals who have lived and breathed this club for the best part of 2 decades. The obvious implication is that the Trust and the fans we represent are somehow not. Let us state now, for the record, that the supporters of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club have lived and breathed this great club for far longer than 2 decades, and we will continue to do so far beyond the tenure of our current custodians. The club fails to acknowledge that in previous meetings with the Trust it repeatedly denied that any talks were taking place in relation to any European Super League, even while it is now clear that those talks were taking place. Its latest statement is another attempt to deflect criticism at a time when the club should be seeking to rebuild relationships and repair trust. Relationships matter, not only with fans, but with the wider football family. And when those relationships have been so severely damaged, the time has come to reassess. Fans are not convinced that the current board or owners do know that the heartbeat of the club is the success on the pitch, and the warning that we shall need to recover from this loss of substantial revenues is ominous indeed from a board that has imposed the highest ticket prices in Europe and charged £60 for the partial return of fans to our stadium after a year of the pandemic. Real change is coming because of you, the fans. You have made your voices heard. We remain committed to securing that real change at the football club, whose interests we always have and always will put first. I mean, for the majority, I agree with a lot of that statement. Obviously, wanting the board to go, I understand it. I don't think it's the right move. They've done many wonderful things for the club. And I feel like what we just need to do is use the fan power to create a scenario where the board really have to involve fans. And I understand we've lost a lot of money and we need to make it back. But I just think the £60 ticket price was just the wrong move. It come at the wrong time. I think what they just need to look into is using the stadium for these external things, like artist performance, the NFL, just getting other things in like that. You can even, me, when I was working as a manager in a bar and nightclub, we actually hired out Tamworth Stadium for the day. We played at Tamworth. They provided us with all the kits. There was loads of different energy drink suppliers that sponsored the day and sent us loads of crates, and there was loads of water provided. We hired that for a corporate event. We had all the different sections of our company brought their own 11-a-side team, and we had a tournament. We played each other throughout the day. And it was fantastic. And I think West Ham do something else as well. There was a team that I played for 5 or 6-a-side football. And every year, like I never went with them, but they used to take a team up there and they would play in this tournament at West Ham's old ground. So these things can be done. And there are extra ways of making the revenue. Obviously, we've got the Skywalk, the Dare Walk. We've got our tours of the stadium. You can do legend tours, which I did at White Hart Lane with Pat Jennings. That was brilliant. I mean, there's so many ways of making money. Loads of corporate events, hiring out meeting rooms, things like that. There are other ways without punishing the fans for that. So, I get where both sides are coming from, and I think we are going to see progress. There will be fan involvement on the board, and they will get a vote. Now, my only problem with that is they're outnumbered. So, yes, they get a vote, but they're going to be outvoted. Then on top of that, this is my biggest worry. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you often find that money talks. Now, they're going to know who this person is, and people's integrity quite often is tested by money. All it takes is for somebody to privately contact that member of the board that is a fan, pay them off to vote with them. We're never going to know. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but in this day and age, you can't put it past them. Like, I watch a lot of documentaries on TV, and money certainly talks. Like, I think if any of you have been watching them, like Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy, a lot of these, people that are saying they've got like the ethical fishing and stuff like that, they've got that little seal of approval to say they're fishing properly. A lot of these people that are meant to go out to see how they're doing it go missing in the ocean, and there are reports that they've fallen overboard. Of course they haven't. They've been pushed over and killed because they were going to disrupt whichever company's potential revenue from fishing is. Or they pay them off and then they get the seal of approval for like the ethical fishing. So look, it happens all across the world. And when there's massive money at stake, don't think for a second that bribery isn't an option. I mean, again, I'm not saying it is. That's just me thinking worst case scenario. So fan involvement on the board would be great, but I think there needs to be a bigger presence. Much, much bigger presence. But it's a right step in the right direction. And slowly but surely, I feel like fans can make a change. Speak your words. If any of you are going to the protests today or tomorrow, just be sensible. Go to the protests, be peaceful, and make your words heard. There is nothing worse than what happened with United and Liverpool, what happened at Arsenal, where there are things being damaged, where there's flares going across. Remember, there's still environmental factors when you're there. There's still innocent bystanders walking past. Don't go there and damage stuff. If you damage stuff, guess what happens? It needs to be repaired. And where does the money come from, the repairs? Us, the fans. So by going there, not being peaceful and damaging stuff, you are affecting us. Okay? So go there, be peaceful, make your words heard, stand out, be important, do it the right way. That's all I ask. Please. So, fingers crossed we get a win under our belt. I mean, it's another home game, and Ryan Mason, I'm sure, would love to finish the season with lots of home victories. So we need to get behind them there. Hopefully the players get that stick from out their backside and show a bit of passion. And I'm sure they will. They're not going to want to not have any European football at all. That will be disruptive for many of their careers. It will hold them back. A lot of them will need moves. Will they get them in this current financial climate? Probably not. But yeah, fingers crossed we can get a win. I personally think we win in this game, just as a kickback from that awful performance against Leeds. So if you haven't already, guys, remember, please subscribe to the channel. Support it with a like to let me know you're enjoying the content. Turn on the bell notifications so you get notified when the next video goes live. But as always, guys, as I say, stay safe and come on you Spurs.